안녕하세요, 여러분. Welcome to my next video. In this video, we're going to look at the present tense in Korean and how to conjugate verbs. 그럼 시작할까요? So, in Korean, we conjugate the verbs to convey different meanings. Each verb base form will end in 다, for example, 하다, which is to do. And similar to English, we will need to change the verb to convey different meanings like I want to go, I will be going, he goes, etc. The Korean language has two main types of verbs, action verbs and descriptive verbs, which function like adjectives in English. When conjugating these verbs, we mainly look at the verb stem, which is the verb without the 다. Action verbs are just like English verbs and they represent the actions like eating, reading, running, very similar to English. But unlike English, where adjectives are a separate part of speech, Korean treats adjectives more like verbs. These are called descriptive verbs and they also end in 다, their dictionary form. When used in a sentence, they need to be conjugated much like action verbs. I will cover descriptive verbs in another video in more detail, but for now, just know that they are treated similarly to verbs. But still, descriptive verbs are like adjectives where they describe a state or condition like being big, small, pretty, or smart. The two terms I have already mentioned is the dictionary form of the verb, and that is 가다, to go, 먹다, to eat, 주다, to give, 보다, to see. So these verbs in their dictionary form will always end in 다, and the conjugation starts there. When you want to conjugate the verb, you will drop the 다 and then get it to the verb stem. So a verb stem we call the verb without the 다, so after dropping the 다. So 가다 in its verb stem would be 가, 먹다 would be 먹, 주다 would be to, and 보다 would be 보. So you've got dictionary form of the verb, and then you've got the verb stem. And so you take off the 다 as the first step of the conjugation. So you take a piece of that puzzle, yeah? And then you add another piece you attach it to the verb stem to then change it to present, past, future. You can change it to say, I want to go. All these different things are happening with the verb. All right, so in terms of the present tense, like I've mentioned, our first step is to drop the 다, okay? And then you are going to look at what the last vowel is, and then that depends what you attach to the verb. So the rules of that are in the yellow box, and then we've got some examples. So for the first bullet point, if the last vowel is a or o, you add ayo. So the first examples in our green box are following that rule. So let's have a look. So 가다, to go. You've got 가. It ends in a, so after you drop the 다, the last vowel there is a, right? So you're adding ayo. So it becomes 가요. But those two combine into, because they are the same, so they just combine into one and it just becomes 가요. And I will explain the combinations in the next slide, okay? So 가다 becomes 가요. 잡다, to catch. After dropping the 다, becomes 잡. And then again, the last vowel there is a, so you're adding 아요. And there the vowels cannot combine because you've got the last final 받침, the last consonant at the bottom that's stopping them from combining. So it just becomes 잡아요, 잡아요. Okay, our second rule is if the last vowel is not one of the above, so if it's not a or o, you are adding 어요. So we've got 먹다, the third verb. So 먹다 becomes 먹 after dropping 다. The last vowel there you can see is o. So you're adding 어요, 먹어요. And again, you've got the final consonant at the bottom that's stopping the vowels from combining, so it's just 먹어요. The fourth one is 서다, to stand. After dropping 다, it becomes 서. Again, it's the second rule, so we're adding 어요, and it becomes 서요. And just like with 가요, they are the same, so they combine into one vowel and it's just soyo instead of soyo. And the last rule is that only ha is followed by yoyo and becomes heyo. So the hada verb is ha, hada is to do, ha plus yoyo just becomes heyo. Always the case. This is just always the case. And it's only with hada on its own, because hada is to do, but also the hada verbs. You have, which one of the really good things about Korean is that you can take noun and then attach it to hada verb to then create a verb. So for example, 공부 on its own is a noun. It means studying. But when you say 공부하다, that is the verb, to study. So 공부하 again changes to 공부해요. Right? And this next slide is really, really useful because it gives you all the different combinations, how vowels can combine together. So the second thing you need to know is that with the present tense conjugation, it's so if the verb stem, yeah, right, when you drop the ta off, ends in a consonant, then you're just attaching ayo or oyo because it just flows naturally. But when that verb stem ends in a vowel, you have to combine the vowels together. And this kind of shows you all the different ways of how to combine them. Now, just mind that there are some irregulars, but irregulars are following their own thing, and you'll see when I'll post video about irregulars. So just don't worry too much about that right now. So let's just look at these ones. So the first one is kada. You have then a combined with a because in ka, the last vowel is a, and you're attaching ayo. So you've got a and a. When a and a meets, it just becomes one a. So it's kayo, not kayo. The next one, soda, to stand. Again, so, but it's the second rule that applies. So we're adding oyo, but when o and o meets, it just becomes one o. So it's soyo. Next up, we have uda, to come. So o, the verb stem ends in o, last vowel there is o, and that means it's the first rule. So we're adding ayo, and when o meets a, it becomes the complex vowel wa. So it becomes wayo, not oayo, but wayo, oayo, 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 wayo. It's like saying it just faster. Okay, Koreans like to do everything 빨리 빨리, which is quickly. So when you, over time, saying this very quickly, it just becomes wayo. Next up is 주다, to give. So 주 is our verb stem. So it's our second rule that is applying because the vowel is not o or a, it's u. So we're adding oyo. So when u meets o, it combines to a complex vowel wo. So it becomes choyo, choyo. Next up, we have 켜다, to turn on. So we've got 켜, and that means we are adding oyo. So when yo means o meets o, it just becomes yo. So 켜요, 켜요. Next up is 가지다, to have, 가지다, to have. So it ends in e, 가지, right? 가지. E is our last vowel there. So we're adding oyo. So when e meets o, it becomes yo. So it becomes 가져요. Next up we have is 내다, to pay. We've got e as the last vowel, and when e meets o, it just becomes e, or stays e. So it's 내요. And the last one is 세다, to count. So when e meets o, it just becomes e. So it's 세요. Okay? So they don't combine, they just don't have any other way to combine. So we're just dropping the oil. So if you just remember this table, then you will be able to conjugate a lot of the action verbs, because majority of the irregulars are descriptive verbs, and you'll be able to know which ones are the irregulars because they end in a certain vowel or a certain way. Okay, so but don't worry about that too much. This is just a present tense for action verbs. So while there are some irregulars in terms of this, it's not too bad. You just need to remember the 3 rules. Know which vowel it is. Be able to identify the vowel and then add either ayo or oyo. With hada verb, it's just heyo. So that's really straightforward to remember. And then you just need to remember that if there is no final consonant in the verb stem, then the vowels need to be combined. And this is what you need to be memorizing or remembering when you want to do your conjugations. All right, so let's have a look at some more examples. So we've got tada, to sleep. So ta, the verb stem, ends in a, so we're adding ayo and those two combine, so it becomes tayo. Oda, to come, we've had, so o plus ayo, wayo. Yeah, it's a complex vowel wa, so wayo. 살다, to live. 살 is the verb stem, and then because there is that final consonant, you're just adding ayo to it, because not adding oyo, because the last vowel there is ayo, but the vowels don't combine because there is that final consonant stopping them from combining, so 살아요. But just notice the pronunciation. When you're saying 살다 or 살, then that rear sounds more like an L sound, right? But if you're saying 살아요, it sounds more towards the R sound. If you are not sure about the 받침 pronunciation and how it can change, then please watch my What is 받침 video because it explains it in such a great detail, okay? Next up we have is 가르치다, to teach. 가르치 is our verb stem. It ends in E, so we should be adding 어요. And that becomes 가르쳐요. When E combines with O, it becomes 요, 가르쳐요. And the last one is 사다, to buy. So sa is our verb stem, and then we're adding ayo, and it becomes 사요. Alright, the next one is 만들다, 만들다, to make. So 만들 is our verb stem, and it ends in a consonant. Yeah, so there's not going to be combination of vowels. But the last vowel there is ö, so we're adding oyo, and it becomes 만들어요. Again, notice the pronunciation. 만들다, 만들어요. 만나다, next up, is to meet. 만나 is our verb stem. It ends in a, adding ayo. They combine together. 만나요. 끓이다, to boil. 끓이다. 끓이 is our verb stem. Ends in e, we're adding 어요. So 끓여요. 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 열다, to open. 열 is our verb stem. We're adding 어요 again because the last vowel there is 여, so it's not o or a, and it becomes 열어요. And the last one is 그만두다, to stop. 그만두다. And 그만두. So the last vowel there is u. We're adding 어요, and it becomes 그만둬요. Okay, and it's the time to practice. So pause your video and try to conjugate these 3 verbs, and I will see you in a second with all the answers. So we've got 찾다, our first one, 찾다, to find. So 찾 is our verb stem. You've got a final consonant there, so no combination of vowels. Then you've got the last vowel is a, so we're adding ayo, becomes 찾아요. 찾아요. Again, 찾다, 찾아요. See the difference in the pronunciation? Check out my What is 받침 video. 생각하다, to think. So this is one of the hada verbs. 생각 is a thought, and 생각하다 is to do thought, so to think, yeah. 생각하다, so 생각하, and then the hada verbs always change to 해요, so it becomes 생각해요. And the last one is 마시다, to drink. So we've got 마시, our verb stem. It ends in e, so we're adding 어요, and when those two meet, they become 여, so it's 마셔요. Alright, and that is it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, then please give me a thumbs up and subscribe because it really supports my channel, and I upload 3 videos a week to help you study Korean. 그럼 다음에 또 봐요.